Smile for the camera.
Awesome.
Wow, that looked sure forced. Okay.
Okay. What's the brain structure? Brain structure. Sorry.
You're good.
All right. Good.
Okay. Hormones. So thyroid hormones. That's just
No.
or no.
No, you're doing fine. But negative feedback, that's chapter 2.
Oh, you just my bad. Sorry.
But yeah. First, with hormone, we got classes. Keep that in mind. And then after that, you're right. We just say glands, you don't necessarily. So you've got pineal, pituitary, thyroid, adrenals, gonads. Okay. Thank you. We're gonna get there.
Are you wanting like? Should we write out the hormones for each?
Well,
Or
the big ones to obviously know are going to be our pancreas, another major one along with liver, is to understand our insulin, glucagon, our epinephrine, our cortisol, and then testosterone, growth hormone. I don't talk enough about the estrogen class of hormones in this class, because really the research out there on the effects of hormones on female performance is really sparse and not very good. Because there's not very big sample sizes, and it's so hard to control for all the differences that you're going to find naturally with ladies. So it needs to be researched, and if any guys wants to go ahead and do it, feel free. It involves nice, comfortable conversations, such as, how long is your cycle typically? When do you feel like you're in the middle of your cycle?
You could be better for me for a woman, but
I
I definitely wouldn't suggest you do that.
Indeed. Indeed. I mean, I'll have the conversations with my athletes once we know each other, but you're right, that's not like, yeah, it's nice to meet you, hi, I'm Dr. Landis, when's the last time you bled from your uterus? Let's have that conversation.
was there any others? I don't remember. Sorry, I was.
No, it's okay, it's
You
okay.
You're right.
So you're doing fine. At the end of the day, guys, it's, okay, do we understand, by hormones, we're really talking endocrine system, okay? So now, hormones are what's being produced by it. And remember, a lot of our signaling through our endocrine system is gland A, typically being your pituitary gland, is telling gland B, may it be your thyroid, may it be your adrenals, may it be, etc., to produce hormone, whatever. So it has an effect. And then once that hormone gets to a certain concentration in the blood, negative feedback kicks in, we're not getting more of it than we need. Okay? But then understanding exercise can have an effect on our hormones, specifically those ones that we listed. I mean, also there's aldosterone, so we got to make sure we keep in mind antidiuretic hormone, ADH, angiotensin, and all the others that are involved, vasopressin, with blood pressure and fluid regulation. Silence.
I'm sorry if I spelled something wrong.
It's okay. I'm just going to make sure I take it off your phone for you.
Okay,
I'm getting great on spelling, guys. Unless I can't understand what the heck you're trying to say, then I read it off simply because I don't know what the heck you meant.
Well, that makes sense.
Okay. So we're going to dig more, but let's just kind of get the basics. So
Okay.
energy expenditure really is just exercise burns calories. The human body is really inefficient. But efficiency is key. So when I say inefficient, about what percentage of the energy we produce actually goes towards work?
I was gonna say 20%, but
It's like, we're talking like somewhere in the neck of 25 to 40%. Most of the energy produced is just wasted as heat. So,
You said energy does work, it was 25 to 40, what?
Yeah.
Sorry.
and then on top of that, understanding things like our resting metabolic rate, thermic effect of food, pretty much everything that's going into the calories we burn each day.
Cardiovascular. Heart.
Yep. Yep, the most garbage power from Captain Planet. Let's be honest. Can you imagine?
Tell me how you really feel.
Okay, I'm just saying, like, hey, Bob just got the power of Earth, being able to move that around. Sam over there's got the power of controlling water. I've got a pet monkey. This is. The other person's a living flamethrower. Okay, so. aside from the heart.
Anyways.
What else do you want to write down?
Really, guys? Really? Come on.
I don't know.
What are the three parts of the system?
Heart, blood, and
The vessels. Your vasculature. There we go. Chapter 6, done.
We're all set. I need a stool.
I need a stool. Oh my god.
Let's just, no, I'll be fine.
Nah, you'll be
We'll
fine.
just, we'll
Okay.
deal with it.
So obviously we've got gas exchange. And then the various laws around it.
Here you got fix,
Good.
spoils, and then Henry's.
Mm-hmm.
Working on it, baby.
Good. So, cardiorespiratory changes to exercise. Now we got what? And obviously I don't think we need to write down lungs for the respiratory, and diaphragm and otherwise, but in case someone forgets that those exist.
You want me to write lungs? Is that what you're saying?
So why not? Why not?
I was like,
I
what?
thought you said that. Okay.
Okay.
So are you wanting like the intrapleural pressure, or
Stroke
don't
volume,
get into that,
yeah.
or that?
You should probably understand it, but more important, heart rate, stroke volume, respiratory rate, respiratory volume, blood flow, AV O2 difference.
So the principles of exercise training, isn't that the specificity and stuff?
That's one.
Yeah, and I think.
Do you hear that? It's driving me.
Squeaking.
Yeah, what is that?
I don't know. A student trying to slowly drill a hole in the floor
Oh, that's fine.
so he can cheat or something, I don't know.
Definitely. It's driving me crazy.
Not a far drive.
That's all I can hear.
What's the last one? Individualized, that makes sense.
Or something like that.
I was just
Something
like
with
sitting up here, I was like,
word. I was
here
like,
are
oh,
five,
I'm
and I am
using
not writing. No. Yep, sure.
that. Yep.
Okay. And
Adaptions to resistance training.
Really?
No, I was just, I haven't looked over that chapter
haven't
yet. So I'm like, oh.
Why do people lift weights?
To get stronger.
Boy, I bet that's an adaptation.
I mean, yes. Are you wanting like their cross-sectional area or like stuff like that?
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure.
What adapts? Thanks to resistance training.
Okay. Fat-free mass increases, decreases of fat mass.
Sure.
Are you wanting like?
At the neurological side, remember we're going to be better at recruiting our muscles. Synchronization, rate coding, etc. And then why we're going to program at different rep ranges for different effects.
Is it rate coding?
Anything else you guys would like to add?
Programming for strength, power, or hypertrophy. There's more than just programming for hypertrophy.
And
Comma, this is comma, STR. Comma, PWR. Comma, END. Yeah, that's the lion's share of it. So adaptations to aerobic and anaerobic training. A before E except after C.
where am I? What did I screw up?
And aerobic.
I did that earlier and I messed, or I changed it, but I guess I didn't change it there. Sorry. I was trying to write fast. I felt the pressure.
Boy, it's real. Okay, cool. So, what are we going to get better at by doing some aerobic training?
Or do you want to like,
Hard and endocrine changes.
what'd you say?
Hard endocrine system changes.
And then,
Changes of the blood and skeletal muscle.
good.
Cardiovascular.
You kind of already said that.
What was the other one? How changes of the blood, what was the other one?
But skeletal muscle.
Skeletal muscle.
Vasculature. You're close enough. Okay. And then also the left, you're going to have types of aerobic training. And you'll have types of anaerobic, so like long, slow distance, fartlek training, tempo training, etc. And then anaerobic, we're talking about the same, looking at these same different types of adaptations, only obviously we're specific to certain energy systems more than others, and certain fiber types. Wow. You're doing great. You're doing great. Just
I was gonna say, if someone else wants to write, I would love it, but So, anyway, like, increase in type 2 fibers. Needs more. I don't know if we're trying to get this specific.
So about that environment chapter.
We're just gonna scoot this on over. we got a little bit wild.
That'll be alright, we'll get there.
We is,
We got excited.
it's okay, it's okay.
Environment stuff, so can we just go hot and cold?
Yeah, but so think about ways we can have energy exchange, okay? Oh, wow, you really are going off the rails there. Go for it. Switching between cursive and normal writing,
It's really hard to write cursive on this board, especially when I'm like down low or up high. It just sort of like goes into squiggles. So like it's just having to go into like half and half.
So just think, really, it comes down to simply heat gain and heat loss, the different ways that we can go through both of those, okay? Followed by what can acclimate and or adapt depending on where we're at. Don't forget radiation. And that's really about it to it. And then obviously things that are involved with each of those. So training for sport.
This one just goes downhill. Just
No,
gonna-
you're okay.
No, I'm, okay, yep,
You are
she
your,
did that.
You are your own worst critic
Yes.
up there.
Yes,
Yes.
I am.
Quit being mean to yourself, because no one has to be nice to you. So you should probably work on being nice to you.
Okay.
What, guys? 100% truth.
Oh, wow.
So under training. You're doing under training. Sorry.
He's laughing at me.
I'm laughing at the way you moved up to the board.
You know what, you just do you, you're doing
I
great.
am. I'm doing a great job.
Yes.
You are. You got it there, buddy. You're making it happen. You really are. So we have under training, followed by typical training, followed by overreaching, and then getting ourselves into overtraining. And so what we're really looking for is just trying to optimize the amount of stress we're applying to the individual and tracking it to make sure we're doing things right. And then obviously the different things that comes with each of those. So you can go under training / detraining to make it make sense for folks. Okay, so then obviously specificity is key. And individuality is another factor to keep in mind. Okay. So, body composition is pretty much itself. So just understanding body fat and lean body mass. And then we're talking about weight standards. And then optimal diet setup for athletes.
It was weight
Weight standards.
weight standards.
I was like, I knew it was like classes, but I was
It's
like.
okay, I didn't hear the first one, I heard this, I heard that one, so.
You guys are good. Okay. And then for drugs, we really just go down to ergogenic aids. Placebo effect is obviously a big thing. And then both legal and illegal. Okay, so let's go back over to muscle.
Let's get done.
I mean, contraction, it's like,
Yeah, so just write action potential. Fiber type. And then architecture. That's it.
are you talking about for architecture, like how it's like put together?
Yeah, sarcomeres,
Just
how
wanna
we
make
have
sure.
the Z lines, putting together all those individual sarcomeres into parallel and then how they run in series, blah, blah, blah. Now for energy systems, you guys got some of the stuff you need there. But we definitely need to talk about essentially organelles and enzymes. Important to understand what's going on. Okay.
What was it?
Enzymes.
And neurological, you definitely want the autonomic nervous system on there. If you don't know, that's my boy. Train yourself like a weapon. Okay. So for cardiovascular, you can then draw a line from heart and put stroke volume and heart rate. So it's kind of the two major branches of that. For the blood, we've got red blood cells and then we've got plasma. That's really the two things we care about. And then vessels are really just, the ones we're really caring the most about is straight up capillaries. And then you can talk about essentially anastomoses or branching or sprouting, but we don't get into that in this level class.
What do you want me to write?
Capillaries is good.
Okay, I was like, spell anastomoses.
Please.
Using small words. Keep it smaller.
Yes, please.
Smaller. All right. So, questions, comments, concerns?
If we look at the homework, or like homework study guide, they come out.
Yeah. Honestly, like I said, it's all about the big concepts. So like the questions I put on the quizzes are arguably a lot more precise, where this is a lot more open-ended. So let's do this as a thought exercise. Leave all this up. We're going to see if we can stick this into the margins. I believe in you. And or you can make anyone else in this classroom take over with writing things on the board. So let's say our goal is to literally make the best type of mountaineer that we can make. So this is someone that essentially is literally climbing mountains. So let's start off with chapter 1. Okay? We're trying to make the best mountain climber. Okay? What do we need? So we're talking fiber type. Kick it off.
Okay.
You don't need.
You need type 1,
One.
because they have to keep going.
They have to
Type
Yeah.
1 and type 2A?
And I'd argue just a little bit of type 2A because it's not really a power thing, it's all just endurance. Being able to climb for hours is, you still have to have a certain amount of power, but for the most part, it's just endurance. Okay? So then we lend ourselves to the energy systems. What would we argue is probably going to be the two most important energy systems for that person?
Beta, oxidation, and
Anaerobic
you said
Anaerobic.
Okay, folks. You have to keep in mind, some questions I will ask you does not have a straightforward, clean answer. Like whenever I picked on you guys with the pitchers in softball and pitchers in baseball, like that's straightforward. You don't want anaerobic glycolysis with them because if they have to use anaerobic glycolysis, something has gone horribly wrong, okay, in that sport. Okay. Meanwhile, sport of basketball. How many times can you get into a situation where you've got a fast break and you're in full court press? You've got to be able to go hard with anaerobic metabolism. Okay? That's definitely not unheard of. Now, let's say you're climbing a mountain. Okay? We definitely want to have that big base. So we just know we can run all day and we don't have to start tapping into our carbohydrates. But then, the next energy system, I'd argue, is something that you simply need to make a good argument for. So why would you argue for anaerobic glycolysis? This is being recorded. Just keep that in mind for language choices in case you were to perhaps enter the room. Danke.
I don't know, my whole thought when you guys said anaerobic was they're going up in the mountains, so elevation,
Less oxygen.
there's less oxygen there, but I could also see aerobic just because if they're, depending on, if they're trying to be the best, then they probably have like an oxygen tank, I would think, maybe, I don't know.
Or try to do it without, which we'll get to that when we get to the respiratory functions and otherwise, but no, these guys, good questions to have, good questions to have. So at the end of the day, could we make an argument for the ATP-CR system?
If like something severe happened, but
Could you maybe
But I mean,
have to
like-
have a burst of, like, literally need to be able to explode for 5 or so seconds to get out of a compromising situation?
yeah, if you were like in a rock slide
Yeah.
or something, then yeah, you need it.
So does that make sense? You
Yeah.
might need anaerobic glycolysis, because let's be honest, most of you guys, if we put you on the rec center and ask you to climb that wall, that is an anaerobic glycolytic experience, because you're definitely not getting up it in 2 seconds. Okay? So you can argue any of those. You simply have to be able to argue it and say that based upon what we're trying to do, this would be the best. Okay? So now let's move our way into the neurological system. What would we definitely want to have enhanced? No problem. We're going to go into the neurological system. What would we want to have enhanced? Autonomic would be a good choice. Is it a good thing to panic if you're midway up on a mountainside? Probably not. It's probably pretty good to have a really good control of your autonomic nervous system. What else? So the nice thing is, we don't need to have super sharp senses, right? For the most part, mountains pretty much just stay there. Kind of good. We don't have to worry about hitting a ball that's moving by at high speeds. Hand-eye coordination doesn't really have to be that high because it turns out you're grabbing a fixed object. Okay? But we probably want to have really good balance and really good kinesthetic awareness of where our body's at. Does that make sense?
Doesn't have to just be me, guys.
Okay? So now let's talk about the hormonal system. Anything here we really want to have really good control of or otherwise? Let's see if any of you guys can think outside the box far enough. I'm gonna grab the second half of my lunch because I realized I've been sitting in the microwave since whenever we started.
No fun.
This is why I keep losing weight. I forget to eat.
So do you,
Glucose in his blood, like, you don't want.
see, that's what I was
You
thinking,
don't
like,
want
you
it,
need
you don't
a
want
really
it
good
blood pressure.
balance.
Yeah, you don't want it to go down to, because you don't want to like pass out halfway up the climb. Like, for not having enough.
So,
I would agree with that.
I don't think that's outside the box. I don't think that's.
balance of insulin and glucose.
couldn't freaking
What
tell
is
you.
it?
What does cortisol do?
Cortisol, it's the stress hormone, so
It's a stress hormone of like exercise? Or it's just a stress hormone?
So
I don't
you got-
fully
so
know.
it's the
I
stress
couldn't
hormone.
fully tell you. Like I just know basically testosterone increases, cortisol decreases.
We
So
gotta do
then
that.
So
I know I'm not trying to figure out. So like
Well, testosterone helps with like fatigue and like
so it delays
rebuilding muscles. So I
fatigue,
feel like you would want an increased level of testosterone, so you wouldn't
Yeah.
fatigue as fast.
But this might.
Yeah, what?
I don't know. It really confused me yesterday when he was saying that like cortisol helps you wake up and stuff.
Yeah, he was
And,
confusing me with that too.
Well, you said it was a stress hormone.
Yeah. So it,
Saying like in the morning or whatever, like you're stressed out about something, that's what makes you warm, that's what makes you wake up.
Yeah.
What does cortisol do? Like what is cortisol?
Cortisol is a steroid hormone that is released from your adrenal gland, specifically, remember correctly, it's going to be from the medulla. From there, it goes into your bloodstream and it specifically signals on your cells to increase energy availability. So what that's going to do is it's going to release glucose from glycogen. It's going to release fatty acids a little bit from adipocytes, but nowhere near as much as epinephrine does. And then it's also going to help literally stop muscle protein synthesis. So that way you have those amino acids available inside of muscles to utilize as a fuel source.
what?
Ask me no questions, I tell you no lies.
Oh, so I have increase the energy availability. Is there something else you guys want me to write up here about that? And if so, please tell me.
Here's the thing. In order to go up the mountain, what's the other thing aside from lower air pressure that happens?
It gets cold.
Bingo! One hormone could we increase the concentration of? That would in turn help us stay warm.
Is it one up on the board?
Well, the gland is.
So thyroid. No. I mean,
We pick a journal or something. Is for your thyroid?
Thyroid hormone.
okay. So T3 or so increase T3
T3, T4.
slash T4. Is that what you were saying?
And what's the hormone that we've suggested that Grayson have used to increase his orbital performance?
PO?
Made by our kidney.
Is Caucasian Syrian equation? Or wrong? See. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. EPO, erythropoietin.
Okay.
So we have naturally higher amounts of red blood cells.
Oh, okay.
What else?
I don't know, Emily said we just need to keep a good balance of insulin and glucose,
Glucagon, yeah.
glucagon. So, but does that need to be like noted?
Depending on the questions asked, yeah.
Note it.
I'm gonna note it.
Same thing with testosterone, growth hormone. Why would we want to make sure that, or why would we want to probably not have that high of a testosterone level? you got it. Everyone's muscle mass. Think of it this way, guys. Which gender is typically better at cold?
Male.
Male.
No?
Really?
I'm always cold.
Say.
It's one thing to be cold, but here's the other thing. You guys gotta think scale. You're small. Female weighs the same as I do. Due to the differences in build and typically shorter limbs for your average female, along with more central adiposity, equals that the women typically do a better job of holding on to heat when they're colder than men do. It's okay for your hands and feet to constantly be cold, because we do everything the opposite. That's why my bad joke is like, I don't want a vest. A vest makes no damn sense to me because my torso's never cold. I just want to wear sleeves. Be real creepy, be the guy that wears like the long gloves that come up to like the upper arm.
Just do it. Just do it.
Yeah, me and Cruella DeVille. I'm trying to be a Victorian woman. There's not 5 out of socks.
Oh my god.
That's a picture.
That's what they're meeting right there, folks.
What do we want to? I don't know about decreasing like diuretic hormone and stuff, like,
Nah,
no.
probably leave that alone.
Is there anything else for hormones?
Is there?
You know? Is there?
I vote no. I vote no.
You maybe say something about growth hormone.
But increased growth hormone, is that correct?
Just
or-
to, like I said, maybe, just because it'll help increase recovery. But once again, you're trying to be efficient. You're not trying to be as big as possible. So it can work against you. So let's talk about energy expenditure. In a perfect world, what we want to have them do with the resting metabolic rate. But we're contrary to one of the hormones we already said that they would maybe be hopping them up on.
Decrease the resting metabolic rate.
Yeah, because then in theory, you're not burning as many calories because Lord knows you're gonna be burning a lot when you're exercising. How efficient do we want them to be with their movements?
Pretty efficient.
Yes, we do. Indeed. Good, what else?
So what was the hormone for the resting metabolic that you were saying?
We're at T3, we
Okay,
increase
that's
your resting
what I
metabolic
want to
rate.
make sure.
Help you stay warm, but at the same time work against you because now you're burning the calories. Okay. And where would most of their calories consumed each day probably be coming from?
Are you wanting, like,
So there's 3 sources
like,
that we burn energy from, technically 4. So we've got resting metabolic rate, thermic effect of food, and exercise. The 4th one is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT. That's what you see people like tapping their feet and moving all day. Like that does burn some calories. Not that many, but if you do it for 12 hours a day, like wiggling your
I've literally been shaking my leg all day.
but it does add up to the amount of calories you expend. So that's what gets some people in trouble, where they're trying to gain weight and they're like, I don't know why. And then you see them fidgeting all day long. It's like, just sit still. You can't get fat if you move all the damn time, okay? You gotta stop moving all the damn. I know. I'm being facetious. Obviously, yes, you can on either end. But you get folks that end up pushing themselves too far on one end or the other. So, but does that make sense, guys? So the energy expenditure, just have an appreciation for, how much energy do different activities cost, how much you're going to be applying.
I'm trying to figure out like what you would do for that.
Just write.
It's right there.
Wait, you can simply just write exercise efficiency, so how efficient we are with the exercises, and then caloric demands. Okay. And then remember, another big part of that is how we also can measure it. So you guys are local college students, how are you guys gonna measure somebody's energy expenditure? We're gonna buy a $100,000 indirect calorimetry room and have them go inside and exercise? Can you donate that to the lab?
Yes.
Because I really would prefer to set an environmental chamber, AKA a cold room, and a hot room, so I can use it as both a sauna and an ice box. So when a student says they want to meet with me, I'm like, all right, we're gonna meet in the chamber.
You don't know what to expect.
We're gonna be just staring at each other, negative 40 degrees, Mike. I really suggest hurrying this up. Next time you come in, it's 170 degrees and 80% humidity.
And they're bundled up because they're
expecting the
No, the key is you just rock a Speedo underneath all 7 of your layers.
Just in case.
Exactly, so you never
Please
know,
no.
so you're always ready.
I don't think.
First off, no body shaming.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but like, I don't think you want people to come in Speedos.
Oh, I was referring for myself. I thought, I mean, I don't care what they want. Guys, I was a swimmer for years. I
don't think so.
I just don't care anymore. There's a difference between confidence and just not caring, okay? I'm dangerously close to that old man that walks into like the YMCA
man.
gyms and just the towel goes over the shoulder, just don't care. This is what it is.
I had a really creepy guy at the rec that got banned.
Hands down.
Not because of the bathroom, but because he said a lot of inappropriate things to females upstairs. But he would stay naked in the locker room for like 45 minutes, just be talking to everybody. Blow dry his, areas.
That's the worst part.
Great.
Is you get, I kid you not, and I apologize for telling you guys about the realities that happens in a men's restroom, but I swear to God, if you go into a YMCA,
Oh, it's awful.
no, I mean, honestly, I like the YMCA because the cultures, they're always usually really nice people. They got like a decent enough setup so you can do just about anything you want, but there'll always be one old dude with one foot up on the counter, like up on the
Hey,
sink.
son.
Yeah, and then with the blow dryer that's like plugged in the wall, just like, dude,
Letting it fly.
just.
I am glad I'm alive.
And you
yeah.
always knew when Jack had been there
Oh,
because
the
there'd be
same way.
baby
They do the same
powder.
thing where it's just like,
Because he would powder
I don't care.
everywhere. Oh man, it was a sight. I never saw it, but you always knew when Jack was there because there's a mound of baby powder on the ground.
It's just, come on.
Like, oh, Jack was here today. Like,
It's different cultures, different day and era, but it's like, come on. Anyway, so when we go cardiovascular, well, that's just really understanding it. So in a perfect world, we want to have, which of the two do we want to see have improved? The stroke volume or the heart rate? Yeah, so we have more rest, we have more maximal exercise. Remember, max heart rate typically stays the same or goes down thanks to getting in shape. Okay, when it comes to the blood, well, both are going to go up, but then it's a matter of how much volume and over time. Initially, it's plasma followed by the red blood cells, and then where do we want to see better capillarization? And,
The muscle.
well, indeed the muscle, but we're talking about, so our example here would be trying to make essentially the best type of mountaineer.
Arms too, yeah. Yeah, cool.
Great job, a huge amount in forearms so they don't have issues with cramping up and their grip failing them.
Yeah.
And then you're right, great in the legs so they've got endurance, and then same thing with the arms. So it's one of those you can't really just pick one, it's pretty much the musculature of the entire body. Does that make sense? And then, understanding things like the Frank Starling mechanism and otherwise when it comes to performance, but that's more getting ahead of ourselves. So respiratory, what do we want to have? So graceful. Pretty much the biggest darn lungs that we can get relative to their body size with as much, alveoli as possible so that they got a huge amount of surface area. And then since they're going to be doing a lot of stuff at elevation, what does that tell us? What laws are we going to be having issues with?
The boils, the partial pressure, or
And? Boil, is that, you're correct with partial pressure, but what's the other one that matters?
okay, well let's just start with
So,
what's
guys-
fixed and then what's hers.
Fix is going to be essentially the amount of surface area and how thick of a barrier it has to pass through. So remember, Henry's is then gases are going to go into solution relative to their partial pressures. Make sense? So hence, you're up at elevation, so Boyles and Henrys work against you because first Boyles, well, partial pressures are equal to essentially whatever percentage it has in the total air pressure. And then since we've got that lower pressure to push it in with Henrys, we're not going to get as good a gas exchange. Does that make sense?
So, for notation's sake,
Altitude sucks.
Let's try that.
It looks so good
Those
though.
Boyles
I
and
mean, altitude
Because
sucks.
Boyles and Henrys work against you. So at the end of the day, you have to breathe more effectively to offset it. So hence having a smaller body that needs less oxygen in general, along with having a better cardiovascular and respiratory system, makes it easier to match those demands. Make sense? So then acute exercise, well, turns out all those things on the second bullet there are gonna go up. Yep, that's cool.
And
Good. So then, we get ourselves to the real meat of it. So, if we're going to be training them, what are we gonna have them do? Train altitude, why is that?
Because they're in altitude.
Because it's specific, good job. What else? So we're just gonna tell them, go up to altitude and train. You gotta do what we're gonna do.
like, I'd say like steps and stuff. Or like,
Steps and stuff.
like rock climbing and like just stuff that's.
And hiking, perhaps mountaineering.
Yeah.
Go figure. Makes sense, so we're gonna be as specific as possible, okay? So then, how are we gonna be progressive with it? Let's go through our,
Do what is best.
yeah, we can add weight over time. So we're gonna get used to a greater amount of load that we have to overcome. Okay? How are we gonna give them variety?
Different mountains.
Pretty much. One day you do more of one thing, or you do a different route for the rock climbing, do a different route for the actual hiking, so that way you constantly have different stressors you're being exposed to. Okay? What about reversibility?
You gotta keep going.
Yeah, so no days off.
Don't
But
stop.
we want to make sure that we definitely have them training pretty consistently, so they don't have any issues with backsliding. Okay? And then, when we say individuality, what are we gonna do?
Realize what they're weak at
It's like depending on what
and
the
train
person
much
is.
towards strengthening that. So if they're not a very good rock climber, make them rock climb a little bit more.
Bingo. Figure out what their weaknesses are, and then also figure out not just where their weaknesses are, but where they start, and then what's the rate of progression that they could make. And then obviously changing the program around so it's everything relative to what they can handle, not necessarily what you want to force them to do. Okay. So, that makes sense? So now we get ourselves into adapting to that resistance training. What are we gonna have to do? Do we really want to increase our muscle size that much?
No, because it's gonna be more to haul.
Bingo. So what type of programming are we gonna have them doing?
Endurance.
Because they're not gonna get enough endurance with their other training they're doing?
No, it's
High
hard.
rep,
Probably like
low weight.
power, really kind of.
Arguably, I'd say you'd want to train them more actually just for strength and power. So they have that extra kick if they need it. But you wouldn't be having them lift weights 8 days a week. They would probably be lifting weights twice a week, maybe 3 times. Make sense? So they've got a better max strength and max power because because they're going to be getting that endurance work from the rock climbing, from the mountaineering. So why keep hitting them with even more stimuli of the exact same, or essentially of what they're already being tested in, and avoiding hypertrophy work, for lack of a better term, simply because we don't want the extra weight. Okay, so now when it comes to their training, do we want to go aerobic or anaerobic with their training? You had to make a pick.
I mean, if we're training strength and power, anaerobic, right?
No, so this is we're moving on to the next.
Oh, we're moving on, okay, my bad.
Now we're thinking about energy systems that they need.
Aerobic.
Probably just want to go strictly aerobic, okay? And we obviously want to make sure we have them doing the exact same exercises that they in turn are trying to get better at. So if we're really trying to get you better with beta oxidation and aerobic glycolysis with rock climbing, how long do we have to have you rock climbing for? Yeah, we're talking at least 10 minutes to 2-3 hours. Does that make sense? Like, it's a lot of work to really tap in. Hey, if that's your goal, if you guys ever you want an appreciation of what human beings can do, look up Derek Honnold and his free soloing. He did free solo with someone's El Cap in, I think it's Yosemite. So climbed up, I think it's like 4 or 5 vertical miles of rock face. No, sorry. It's 2 vertical miles of rock face with just rock climbing shoes and chalk. No ropes.
What's his name?
Derek Honnold. Honnold. It's insane. Like, just watching the video of him do it is uncomfortable. But I mean, he trained for it for a long time. Like, he didn't just like, oh,
Let's see how far I can go up.
Let's try this.
Those people are impressive. So does that make sense? So now when it comes to environmental, obviously we're going up. So Alex Honnold, thank you. Derek Honnold was the strength coach I had at Kansas. My apologies.
And also, Derek Collins did.
Okay.
Anyways.
So obviously dealing with cold. Okay. So what's going to be the 2 major ways that they're giving up essentially their heat to the environment?
Radiation.
Now, evaporation if you're
Yeah,
sweating.
If
Yeah.
it's sweat.
If you're just standing there, probably what is it instead? Or even moving? It's probably convection. So obviously dressing appropriately for it. And then you're right, when they do start exercising, we want to make sure that they're not sweating. Because then that's going to cause that heat loss to be even more severe. And how do they really adapt to it?
You be
Get
in it.
over it.
It's like they get over it.
If they're gonna do it, they're gonna do
be
it.
in it.
You just get tougher. That's really
It's
bad.
always the answer.
And when it comes to cold, but yes. So, I mean, that's really the major things there to keep in mind. Okay. Now, when it comes to training for sport, obviously we want to make sure that we're training them optimally. We're not overreaching or underreaching. And we're definitely not overtraining. And how can we, what's an easy way to see if an athlete's training stimulus is obviously not appropriate for what they need?
3 inches.
Say again?
3 inches.
Yeah, how could we easily detect it?
Talking to him.
Not necessarily. Because some athletes are soft.
Are you wanting like a test? Or like
Guys, if we're training someone, what's our goal?
to make them
Make
better?
them the best.
Okay, so what's a damn good indicator that we're
To
not,
see they're getting better.
so if they're not doing
Then
what?
we know.
I mean, switch it up.
Or we're doing too much, or we're doing too little. That's the problem with the overreaching or under-training, is either way, they're just not getting better. So now you gotta ask yourself, are we not getting better because we're doing too much? Or we're not getting better because we're doing too little? Because unfortunately, some coaches will be like, well, we're not getting better, so obviously we're not doing enough. And then all we do is crush them even worse because we're already doing too much. It's just
Sorry.
I was just like, how'd I do that?
I'm really bad.
Your
so.
rage.
You're ready. You just got so mad at me.
Because that's me.
I don't think there's like any more room.
No, we got this. We got this area. We're just gonna
Okay.
put an arrow.
I'm gonna put like boards across the wall.
It's just all the.
It's all around the wall. Like that's wasted space over there.
That's just wasted.
Wasted.
I mean, that whole wall.
This right here?
Wasted space.
Folks, this is just all wasted.
Me, wasted.
Not leveraging the little talent I have. No, I'm kidding. I'm freaking awesome.
Confidence is good.
Confidence is always good.
Folks, I knew I was never going to be a great physicist, but I could always be a really smart gym teacher. So that's what I became. Okay? It's important to know who you are. Okay, does that make sense, guys, with overreaching, overtraining, and underreaching? And then obviously an easy indicator, like I said, is just, are they getting better? So that at least lets us know A or B. Now, how can we try to be then able to differentiate between undertraining or overtraining or overreaching?
I mean, overtraining, you're gonna see fatigue.
But you're gonna see that in both.
So it depends on
No,
the type
actually,
of fatigue.
There'll be a lack of fatigue because we're undertraining them.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were saying overreaching and overtraining.
Yeah, no, that is the duration, the severity,
Yeah.
and otherwise. Like you'll see fatigue and overreaching. There's a
Yeah.
reason why you see me walking
Oh, I
around
thought we were talking
crippled today
about
because of.
over and under.
Yeah, so that's what I thought too.
Yeah, so the key is
Okay.
We are.
now you'll see fatigue, but how do you test for fatigue?
I mean, you
See
could
how long it lasts.
see like,
What was I saying?
But see, even then, vertical jump would still go down for both, so it's still not going to be a good cut and dry explanation.
I mean, if they're
Check to see how much they're
Velocity?
sleeping.
like power production, if it's down.
Same thing. Yeah, well, that's still telling us both of them they go down.
Yeah.
But the key is you could look at sleep or otherwise, but one thing you could look is like a resting heart rate. If that's more perturbed and higher, that's usually someone that's not fully recovered. Okay. Then, but more importantly, whenever we're talking about someone that's like beaten up, this is literally where the thing about it, if you're undertrained, you're literally applying less stress to your body than what it needs to get better.
Right.
So you actually probably feel good.
So
Okay.
3 H's.
Yeah. So we're talking about healthy and happy. Okay. And then the other one, enjoy your youth, guys. Enjoy your youth. If you want to, it's your own choice. I'm not here to tell you how to live. Okay. The other side is looking into their previous program. Because in order to undertrain, you simply have to be doing less work than what you did previously. Does that make sense? So if I give, kind of like our conversations with Grayson, because he's a great example of it. If I gave Grayson my endurance program, doing the bunny ears for those of you guys who can't see it, AKA,
Get it.
that's okay, AKA I like to go and like literally hike around my neighborhood with my dog or by myself for about an hour or so each night, and then I go for about a 2-hour hike on the weekends. Okay? Grayson's gonna feel great. He's also gonna go way the heck backwards because that's too damn easy for him. He's not gonna get anything out of it. Okay? Meanwhile, how many days do you think I could survive Grayson's training?
Oh, I mean,
No,
We're just
I mean,
kidding.
I mean, you're
Oh,
tough.
I was
You're
like,
tough,
maybe
dog,
one.
but, like,
Oh no, like
I'm just
yeah, I
kidding.
agree.
Because you
I
last,
I could do the workout and get up the next day and just sigh and be like, but
I'll
here's
give
the
you
thing.
like a week and a half.
Yeah. Well, no. Here's reality. Here's reality.
Dog.
Doing the workout is one thing. Hitting his splits, no shot. No shot. It's like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
go
I mean,
around-
you can do the duration and like the distance,
Yeah.
but you're going to
You'd be there for a while.
You're gonna be wild.
Yeah. His 1 hour workout would be a 5 hour slog. Okay, so there might be crawling involved, and I'm not too proud. Okay, but so that's the thing to keep in mind is so. A lot of athletes, when you first get them, or not even athletes, just your general person, if they come into the gym, so we're coming up on the New Year's Resolution Club, which is their, hey, you know what? I hope every single last one of those people is successful, gets the body they want,
Me too.
and feels better.